Hey, welcome back to the Andrew Ramon Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, it is yet another week. Can you believe it? If you're listening to this episode as it comes out, it's most likely, a Monday. But also, we're like halfway through the year, which is absolutely insane. This year has gone by pretty quickly. And that always shocks me. I don't know. Have you ever thought about we do the same cycle for the rest of our lives? It's always going to be June, sometime in the middle of the year. And it's just, I don't know, interesting thought. But anyways, glad you're back. I want to tell you something. I'm actually back. Boom. Mystery. You never knew. You're like, Andrew, you never left. We had an episode last week. I know you did. But actually, I skipped, maybe I slipped out for a couple days for a little vacation, they might say. I definitely have to tell you about it, how it went. That's part of today's episode. But also, we're celebrating such a special day. That is Father's Day. That's right. So you want to stick around even if you don't have a dad around in your life. I'm sure this episode will be a blessing to you because you do have a father, whether you know it or not. And so I'm really excited to share about that. I'm also going to share a little bit about the new mugs. I got new mugs, guys. I needed some resources here, so I got some new mugs from some really cool places that I'll be talking about in the next couple of weeks with some stories. But actually, I want to share this moment with you that was just really cool. So we got to go to California and Nevada, actually both of those, and it was my cousin's wedding. And some of you might already know my cousin or not, but I think I've mentioned him on the podcast, and he just got married, Ben, with his newly wedded wife, or that sounds kind of weird, but yeah, his new wife, and that is Katie Lorenz now, which is super cool. And they're just an awesome couple. We had such a great time spending at their wedding, beautiful outside wedding, which I got to be honest, for me was my first or second outside wedding, but never in a place like north of California. I mean, guys, the setting was amazing. Have you ever had those days that the weather was projected to be terrible and you had a very special event and you prayed about it and then you had great weather? Yep, that was exactly that day. It was amazing. So we're in Northern California and the weather was supposed to be in the 80s, even 90s at some point. So it's going to be really hot. But that specific day of the wedding, it was supposed to be 50. Okay, imagine with me. It's 50 degrees outside, or 55, with windy, and you don't even have a jacket because the way we were dressed, it wasn't just jacket. It was suit. Sorry, not a suit jacket, but shirt, tie, the whole shebang here. And we would look good, but dang, we would be freezing. But God came through. We had a great weather. We had just a great time there. Super happy for them. And actually, cool, we might have a special guest in the next couple of weeks here talking about some really good business, leadership, management, how to manage people, how to be financially successful for yourself, and how to be more efficient as a leader, but not just as a leader like that abstract leader word that we throw around a lot, but actually as a manager at your job. If you manage people, you got to listen to this upcoming episode pretty soon. So don't miss that. Also, have you watched the last episode? I promise I'll get to the current one. We talked about abortion, really controversial, but I think you'll really like it. I did a lot of studying for that episode, so definitely check it out. All right, back to the episode. A word from our sponsors, folks. Let me show you this beautiful mug. This is from a city called Virginia City. Now, where is Virginia City, you might guess? Virginia? Absolutely wrong. I feel like Dwight. Wrong. Nope, it's not. It's actually in Nevada, a little bit west. Is it west? Yeah, east of Reno. That's right. And it's a cool facts about Virginia City is if you go to it right now, I might show some pictures if I got some. If not, definitely follow me, Andrew T. Roman on Instagram, or just follow the page, The Andrew Ramon Show, and you might get a sneak peek of some pictures of Virginia City. And it's an old town road. Instead of a road, it's just an old town back in the cowboy days. Really fun fact is that it used to be a huge town of 350,000 in population, which is a huge number. But then it had a fire almost as big or a little bit bigger than the San Francisco fire or the Chicago fire, which burnt most of the town down. And what is left, they have left it in its old antique fashion, so you can get in kind of those bars or those shops, and literally the wood in the sidewalk is the original wood from the 1860 I believe it was when it was founded. Oh, established 1859. Look at that. I was a couple years off. And what's really cool there is also Mark Twain used to live there, and it's an old miner town. It's really, really cool. I absolutely loved it. And I got this beautiful mug. If you can't see the mug, it's got what's that? Like a black/brownish color to it with a plaque. It's official plaque that says Virginia City established 1859. So I absolutely love the city. We got more stories to come. We ended up going to Tahoe. We were at Reno. We did, what is it called when you go down the creek, but in whitewater rafting. But it wasn't whitewater rafting. It was just kind of river rafting. It was a bunch of fun. You're going to hear it in these upcoming episodes. And definitely follow me if you want to see some pictures of it. All right, into the episode. Into the thick of it. I had to do it. We sung it a lot in our trip. It's not a TikTok reference. It's just into the thick of it. Here we go, into the episode. Happy Father's Day. Let's be honest. Happy Father's Day might be a happy day for you, but at the same time, it might be a mixed emotions day because maybe you don't have the best relationship with your dad, and it's kind of sometimes a little bit awkward when you're like, oh, why am I celebrating this guy I really don't know? Or you might have a great relationship with your dad. Either way, fathers are extremely important. In fact, one of the most startling things about a father, as we will learn throughout this episode, is how the presence of a father absolutely changes. It could change the route of the lives of some of the kids. I mean, percentages of the chances of someone ending up in jail or pregnant before marriage or dropping out of high school or suicide or all these really intense things, obviously, increase dramatically when a dad is not present. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to start the episode just talking about my dad. Now, you might know my dad already. So for those that don't know, my name's Andrew Roman. He's Luis Roman, and he's actually the senior pastor of Viva Church, which is the church that we kind of pastor as a family alongside with Antonio Pliego and his wife, Harmony Pliego. And I absolutely love it. But I want to tell you a little bit about my dad. That way you get to know him a little bit, and seemed appropriate to share a couple things that I respect, I look up to for him. And one of the crazy things, and maybe you'll relate with this with your dad, and if not, I think you can maybe find this or try to emulate it yourself. Because if we're honest, and I'm talking to all the guys here, you'll be a dad either spiritually speaking or physically speaking to somebody. And I hope you're married if it's physically, okay? I was just gonna throw that out there. Anyways, back to the episode. You're gonna be a dad. So what makes a good dad? One of the crazy things about my dad, which is amazing, is that he is a leader. Now, you might say, well, obviously, because he's your dad. No. But let me explain this. When you grow up with a dad, and I'm very blessed to have my dad present at the house, and he's a very good dad, and you kind of grow up under his wing, and you grow up in church and all that. One might think you kind of get tired of your dad. Like, okay, like where I'm literally always with my family. If it's not my dad, it's my brothers. So you might think, oh man, I'm sure you just get tired of them. I'll say this, and I've always written this about my dad. I know a lot of pastors. I've listened to a lot of pastors, but I think when it comes to my dad, one of the things I love about him is his humble leadership. Now, some people will try to assert dominance and say, hey, I am your leader, so follow me. But my dad has remained humble in the process. He's a visionary, which I absolutely love. He can see past sometimes the most impossible situations, and one might say, okay, there's no way we're going to get through this. I mean, one of those examples was handling all the coronavirus last year, and he was just a leader, a visionary through that. Although we had to, go online for some time, we were some of the first churches that opened up again with restrictions, but it was so important for him to see that kind of, hence the name visionary, to see kind of the future and say, okay, God, where are you leading us? And that's one of the most amazing things, is the best leader is the leader that's being led. I'll say that again. The best leader is a leader who is being led himself. And that's my dad. I've seen my dad. I still remember one of the very reasons that I try to keep up a prayer life in my own personal life is because growing up, I would kind of sometimes wake up early and see my dad reading the Bible or see my dad praying. And when I tried, I would fall asleep early in the morning. So that didn't work out for me. But that was just one of the amazing things that I look up to. It's just his humble leadership, his being able to be a visionary. And then, of course, he's a pastor. You might not know this about my dad, but my dad wasn't always a pastor. In fact, he was a businessman in Mexico, and then we transitioned over here to the United States. And he was always in the church, involved in the church, sometimes a youth pastor, other times just part of the elders. But one of the crazy things about it is I remember, and he might correct me, I might get the story wrong, but he was a businessman, very successful business. And one time his mom, my grandma, came up to him and said, "Hey, I think I have a word from God, the one that you're going to be a pastor." And my dad's like, "Sounds cool, great, but nah." It's not, obviously he had nothing against the church. He was an elder, but he's like, pastor's just not for me. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business guy. Well, we moved here, fast forward many, many years, and moved here to the United States. And you guessed it. He is now a pastor and has been for many years. I don't know, plus 7, 8 years, something like that. And it has been really an honor to be able to see that transformation in him from someone who kind of needed to rely on himself and his skills and his energy and his talents in order to make a business grow, to now being a humble leader under the leadership of God and the leadership of others, and saying, "Okay, teach me, here I am, Lord, use me because I want to be used. I want to lead other people." And I've seen him actually take the high road by going low. So what I mean by that is a lot of times people take, they go low. That means, they took the less dignified road. But my dad has always taken the dignified road by being humble himself. And I absolutely love that. One of the other things is 2 things that he taught me, and that is the importance of honor and responsibility. One of the things that sticks out the most about my dad is the way he honors people. We live in a society that's not about honor anymore. We've definitely lost respect for each other, and honor has gone out the window a long, long time ago. In fact, honor is a little bit different than respect, because you can somewhat respect somebody, you don't necessarily honor them. Honoring is sometimes it's going out of your way to show that you appreciate somebody. I see it this way when it comes, especially for kids. When the Bible says honor your parents and honor your mother and your father, and then you will be blessed with long life in this land that the Lord has given you, is the first commandment with the promise. Amazing. But the reason it says honor and not just obey or respect, because you can obey your parents without honoring them, but you definitely can't honor them without obeying them. And I'm obviously not saying anything evil or anything like that, because honor is a position of the heart. And I want to actually encourage you with that, because maybe you're listening, you're like, "Well, Andrew, it's great that you're talking about your dad, but I don't know. That's not my dad." Or, "Oh, hey, I have a similar dad," or whatever the case is. But I think that these are things that maybe you can apply to your life. Be a leader, and a leader means a humble leader. Do you consider yourself a leader? Yet who's leading you? Remember, the best leader is the one that's being led himself. Are you a visionary? Are you able to stay optimistic even when circumstances look dire, even when circumstances look negative, even when everything's closing down? Are you able to see past that and believe that God will take you through it? Now, maybe you're not a pastor like my dad, but all of us have a responsibility to take care of folks that we have influence of, and be careful about the way that we treat people, the way that we talk and everything, because all of us have influence, even if it's not from a pulpit. And then honor. Are you really honoring people around you? That's something that has really stuck with me, is I don't see things necessarily in terms of obeying anymore. Like, I got to obey my dad, but I start seeing things now in terms of honoring. I really genuinely, every time I have to make a decision whether to do what I want to do or maybe do something that's not necessarily disobedient, but I ask myself, is this honoring my dad? Or in a bigger picture, is this honoring God? Is this pleasing God? Actually, we did a whole episode about not moving out, right? Talking about pleasing God, and also about sexual purity. So check those episodes out. But that's one thing that my dad has really taught me, is the importance of honor. I've seen that in his own job when he was a pastor, when he was kind of an associate pastor. When we were part of City Church, it was a larger English-speaking church, and I could see him taking the humble road and honoring people, even when he thought maybe he had a better idea, even when he thought, you know what, I disagree with your idea, I don't think it's going to work. But either way, he understood that honor and being humble is more important than being right or being proudful or whatever other options there are. So, we always do this in this episode, in this podcast. I don't know, think about your life. Are you honoring those around you? Are you honoring your dad? Okay. Now, again, I got to prefix this. I understand that maybe right now you're listening, you're like, dude, Andrew, you literally have no idea how my dad's like. Like, he's not really in the house, or he's like a tyrant in the house, or whatever it is. It's gonna be hard to honor. Now, again, honor doesn't mean compromising on your values. Honor does not mean any of that. But I do believe that there might be a chance where instead of putting yourself first, you might be able to honor your dad. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with your own situation. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm not. Each of our lives are a little bit different, but I do think that there is a key in honoring people, and God honors that as well. The last thing, it was responsibility. One of the things my dad has always taught me is that, hey, you're responsible for your life. That's why he's got it us in a budget early on. Like, hey, you got to be responsible with your money. You got to be a good steward with your money. You got to be a good steward with your time. You got to be a good steward with your resources. And in fact, that's kind of what challenged me to own my faith, is because my dad has always, from the very beginning, even from pastoring, and I include my mom into this, is, yeah, we're the kids, so come to church. But there came a point when he told us, hey, you guys don't actually, you don't have to come to church. Like, you got to own this for yourself. Do you want to come to church? You're more than welcome to come. But if you don't, you don't have to. And that's one of the things that really, I think, has really impacted me the most is a faith that he's had in me of saying, hey, you know what? It's your responsibility, and I believe that you'll make the best choice. Because sometimes it's hard whenever you feel that your dad doesn't have faith in you, right? It's kind of like the whole thing of just getting a thumbs up from dad makes a big difference. Getting that Trump thumbs up makes a big difference, doesn't it? It kind of just rubs something in your chest. It's like playing baseball and looking at dad. Okay, do I have his approval? Because that's what we long for. Because what we have to understand about fathers is that a father gives two things out of many. He gives identity and security. That's one of the best things. And again, I'm not here a consultant, and I won't tell you everything that father does. But one of the things I believe is that he gives identity and security. In fact, when a father goes out of the home and the father is not present, there is no identity in the person, so much so that the suicide rates dramatically increase. Not only that, there's a lack of security in oneself, in the house, or whatever. And not only do the suicide rates increase, but also the chances of one going to jail or committing a crime or dropping out of high school or getting pregnant before getting married. All those things dramatically increase when the father is not in the home. And sadly, culture has tried to replace fathers. Culture has tried to completely dismantle the family unit, saying, Mom, we love moms until we only love moms on Mother's Day. But after that, we're going to pretend like there's nothing different between having a mom and a dad and two moms or two dads. It's nothing different. It's all the same. We all grow up the same. I'm sorry, excuse my French. It's BS, which that's a bacon sandwich. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's bullcrap. That's what it is. Excuse my French. It is what it is. Culture has tried to replace fathers, but it will never be able to replace fathers. Can I tell you something? It's not going well right now in culture whenever we're demasculating men and telling them not to be masculine, trying about this toxic masculinity and all this crap and nonsense that the culture is trying to throw at us. Culture can never replace fathers. In fact, two fathers is not the same. Two mothers is not the same. You have, Nickelodeon or Disney trying to put all these ads and Blue's Clues and other ones saying, oh, this little guy has two mommies. This little guy has two daddies. I don't care if he got two mommies or two daddies. It ain't the same as having one mommy and one daddy, because I don't care how many times you say daddy. It's not the way God meant it, and you can tell by the statistics and the facts that it's just not the way it's supposed to be. A child does not grow in an ideal environment unless he has a father present and a mother present. But of course, we live in the broken world. Maybe your family, as much as my family, can sometimes be broken. But a father brings identity. There's nothing like that thumbs up that we mentioned. There's nothing like that tap on the shoulder and says, hey, son, I'm proud of you. There's nothing like, hey, son, help me. That's why we got, go to work with daddy day and all those things, because they matter. They bring identity. You disagree with me? Probably it's because maybe dad was not around, but even there, you felt his void. Not only identity, but also security. There's security of oneself, security in the home, financially speaking, throughout the siblings. One of the statistics that really shocked me, and I learned this a couple years ago, is when it comes to faith, the influence of a father is tremendous. You see, when mom becomes, let's just say you have a family that does not believe in God. When mom becomes a Christian, the influence that has on kids is important, but they have I don't want to misquote it, but it's in the low digits of a higher percentage that the kids will become Christian. Now, if a dad becomes a believer, if a dad goes a certain way with his worldview and his influence, then all of a sudden, it becomes like a 90% chance or something extremely high that the kids will follow that. Because a father brings identity and security. Of course, father can never do what a mother can do, and a mother can never do what a father can do, or not as good at least. But one of the most amazing things that I love about being a Christian is, hey, we live in the broken world, and your dad might not be around. At least your dad might not be ideally around. He is around, but we get it. He's not. The most amazing thing is that we all have a father. Now, you probably, if you come to church, you've heard it. God is, your heavenly father, and your father loves you, and all this stuff. And sometimes we're like, okay, I have no idea what that means. Well, you have to understand that when you become a believer, when you become a Christian, Romans 8:15 says this, that the spirit you received, and that is when you become a Christian, does not make you slaves as you once were. That's what we know. You were once a slave to sin, so that you fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. I love that. Your adoption to sonship. And by him, we cry, Abba, Father. That term Abba is Aramaic for like daddy, papi. Not like, hey, ¿qué pasó, papi? Not like that, okay? But more like Abba, like daddy. It's amazing. Galatians 4:6 says the same thing. Because you are his sons, God sent the spirit of his son into our hearts, the spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. We see even when Jesus was on earth, when God spoke to him and said, this is my son whom I am well pleased. I don't know what your dad's situation is, and I understand Father's Day can sometimes be a mixed feelings day. But even if your dad's not around, can I ask you to celebrate the everlasting Father who does love you, who is perfect, who is there and says, you are my son, you are my daughter? Because a lot of times to find out who you are, you got to first find out whose you are. Because God, as much as the earthly father gives identity and security, God ultimately does that. And it's unconditional. He speaks identity over you. He speaks security over you. And an unconditional love that says, hey, I'm with you. I'm not going to walk out of your life. I'm not going to leave you alone as an orphan. In fact, you were an orphan, but he has now adopted us into his family. So today, as you finish celebrating Father's Day, remember that you do have an eternal Father. You have a Father that loves you, a perfect one. And if you got an earthly dad around, give your old man a chance. Yeah, that's right. He might not be perfect, but no one is. Many times he's rough because he lived a rough life. So give him a break, or at least give him a hug and say Happy Father's Day. Thank you so much for listening to the Andrew Ramon Show. Don't wait for the next episode. It's gonna be good. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, signing out. We'll see you guys later. Bye.